Right, greetings. Hello. Welcome to the Philosophy Club here in little sleepy Bettet in the middle of France. It's the centre of the ancient geographical heartland of Gaul, France. It's a real privilege to live here with lovely people, and not a lot happens here, which means I can focus on my writing and teaching, and this is the beauty. We don't get armed demos in the streets. You know, the odd wedding, etc. So that's great. However, I've been very busy this week, just to catch people up with it. A few things that might interest people. I want to discuss first the bigger picture, the world situation. I mean, this Gaza war is showing no sign of abating. I'm reading a very up-to-date book, which I just ordered, by OR Books, which is a progressive publisher, called Deluge, and it's a series of essays by leading academics, both Israeli and Palestinian, about what caused this catastrophe. Was it all Hamas's fault? Was it Israel's fault? Was it the West? Was it what? It's a series of very important essays that I'm reading at the moment. And of course, the thing continues to go on. I think one thing that one learns from this book, Deluge, which I strongly recommend, is that this didn't just start on the 7th of October. I mean, I know that as a historian. It's been going on ever since the very beginning of the State of Israel and the conditions under which it was created. One of my good Israeli friends says to me, "Thomas, you're a romantic to think that, the Palestinians want peace. We offered them peace right at the beginning when Israel was created. We could have had a two-state solution there and then in 1946. But they chose to invade us. They wouldn't accept the idea of a two-state solution. We beat them militarily, and they've been grumbling ever since. I mean, it was their fatal error." This is what she tells me. And there is some truth to this. I mean, her parents, were Holocaust survivors like many people in Israel, and they just won the war, she says. So why should we feel guilty about that? I mean, had they won the war, probably they would have killed all of us. So I think she's an average, highly intelligent, university-educated Israeli citizen. And so their argument is that we just won the war. And then, so it's a big question, should people feel guilty if they win a war? I mean, I think yes, the answer is that you should then you have certain obligations and duties towards the people you conquer, the victims, so to speak, and those are enshrined in international law. They do have rights which are guaranteed under international law, and I think if you go on flouting them and pretending they don't have rights, then you're creating a sense of barbarism in the international community. You're breaking the covenant which we all should enter into, as Rousseau said, the social contract. I have duties towards my fellow citizens on the planet, regardless of their nation or nationality. And the fact that Palestine doesn't yet have an officially recognised state, well, this volume explains that that's like being deliberately crafted by the Israeli elite, who've been preventing them from normalising their relationship and their statehood. And the book explains exactly how that's been done over the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, leading up to the catastrophe of what's going on now. So if you look at this situation from the bigger picture, I think there's a whole series of wrong turnings. And I think Israel is operating on this principle that, well, we are the power, we have the might, we have America as our best weapons supplier and backer-upper person. And so we can't be touched, we're invincible. And therefore they've been taking this land in the occupied territories of the West Bank, which is now, a lot of land they've taken for their settlements. And of course they're saying, well, so what? You can't stop it, you can't touch us. I think the first point I want to make here is that, as a philosopher, politics isn't the highest word in philosophy. And realpolitik and war and violence and strength isn't the last word. And we'll come to that later when we look at the periodic table, because I'm going to be looking at political science. I'll save some words about that. But recently, of course, just 2 days ago, they've discovered the body of 6 hostages, Israeli hostages have been discovered dead. And then Netanyahu is saying, oh, all discussion of ceasefires and peace are off the table. We're going to just go on until we slaughter them all. So it feeds the fanaticism on both sides. And this is utterly tragic. And I had a vision that came to me in prayers over this weekend, which I'd like to share, about this intractable conflict situation that people get into. It's the same with Russia and Ukraine. Neither side will talk to each other. They're trying to defeat each other militarily. Neither can do that, I believe, but they're going to cause an awful lot of death, destruction, sorrow and heartache. So the idea that came to me is the following. In the meditation, it was like I could see Muhammad on one mountain and Moses on another mountain. And their respective teams, and I guess Jesus is on another mountain, but he doesn't actually have soldiers really in the field. It's more the Moses versus Muhammad team. And they were directing them from their respective mountains. This is an etheric vision I had. So there's Moses saying, go to it, Israel, chosen people, smash them wherever they appear. It's your land, you're chosen. And he was really waving his arms around from the top of the mountain. And then Muhammad, from the top of his mountain, was saying, children of God, you're children of Allah, defend yourselves, you have that right. You must defeat these people. They think they're chosen, but they're demonic, they're crazy. You have to just prevail because Allah has given you the law of peace, and you have a right and a duty to defend yourself. And so he was gesticulating as well. And I saw these two figures, and I was meditating on it, and then I saw the ground between them became a valley. So if you come off the mountain and you go down to the ground that connects them, you end up with a valley, and the valley has a stream in it. All valleys somewhere have a stream in. And I realised that peace is always taking the middle way between extremes, and it's like the waterway in Taoism. The Tao is the water that always is the spirit of the valley, it says in the Tao Te Ching. And it's the spirit of the valley that leads to the sea with the water, and it's the sea of peace that we're trying to get to. So really we have to get our prophets off their mountains and take the humble way of water or the Tao together, and have less arrogance and hubris and ego about I'm the best prophet, I'm on the top of the tallest mountain, and you have the right, because God says, to destroy those other people. That's the attitude we're up against. And I think if we can only follow the way of the valley, like water, we can then find the sea of peace. So that was the vision. Now, how we translate that into real politic terms in these cases, we'll come to in a minute when we look at the periodic table. But I think that's the challenge ahead of us. Somehow to get this, this idea of the spirit of the valley. And China can help with this, actually. The Chinese genuinely want to mediate these conflicts. And I've just had a Chinese guest visiting here, the musée, and I know Chinese philosophers and teachers who are specialising in peace studies, a chap at Nanjing University. So we can maybe get Chinese intellectuals to show us the way of peace in these mighty conflicts that are going on. The next thing I want to share, which I've been busy on this week, is a very important project coming up on the 21st of September, which is International Peace Day. And if you live anywhere in Ireland, or Britain even, and want to go to Ireland, there's an event happening on the 21st of September, International Peace Day, in Birr, B-I-R-R, to honour the Lex Innocentium, the law of the innocents, that was promulgated in 697 AD by Adomnan, who was a great abbot of Iona and a descendant of Columba. And it was the first time really in the European and Christian world that we wrote a law to protect innocents in times of warfare. Now, the Muslims had already done this. Muhammad promulgated such a law as part of his reforms earlier that century, and the Jains and Buddhists had already done it in India. And the very first Christians didn't fight. They were sworn to peace. But this Law of the Innocents was the first time that we know of an international law, that there was a kind of international agreement, because it held in Scotland and in Ireland. The promulgator, Adomnam, was a friend of the King of Northumbria, so I think he also was interested in supporting this project. So my friends in Ireland, Dr. Sean English and his team, are having a very interesting event. If anyone wants to go and you can get to Ireland, please do. It's a formal signing ceremony. There's going to be people there and giving talks. Some of the Irish peace intellectuals will be speaking. There's going to be some poetry and music. It will be a very stirring event. And I'm trying to organise a network of prayer, meditation and mindfulness happening at the same time. So please tune in at 5 p.m. on the 21st of September and do a 15-minute meditation starting at 5 and ring a bell at 5 o'clock, because bells all over the world will be ringing out for International Peace Day. Our one in Birr is going to be rung the castle bell, and I'll be ringing one where I am as well. And then we want to keep that going, so every Sunday maybe at 5 o'clock, we can keep this meditation going. I do a daily meditation myself, but and also a fast. So that's very exciting. So Lex in Ascension. I've got details I can send people if you're interested. The other thing I want to mention I've been busy is preparing and planning for a retreat I'm teaching on enlightenments and mindfulness. Co-teaching it with a colleague who's highly trained in the mindfulness trainings, and she lives in Dorset, in Poole, where I used to be head of religious studies in the school there locally, and philosophy at the boys' grammar school. So if any of my old students want to come along and join in, you're very welcome. It'll be a 3-day training in how to calm the mind, reach mindfulness experiences, and enlightenments as well. I'll be doing that second half. It should be really interesting, and it's in Dorset, in Poole. So I can send people details, or you can look on my Facebook feed and stuff. The other thing I want to announce is that I'm going to be giving a Druid lecture at Avebury, because I'm part of the Avebury Druid Order, and I'm the Peace Druid of Council of British Druid Orders, so I'm going back to Avebury to do a lecture on the 24th of September. So having finished the course in Dorset, I'll be up at Avebury. And from 11 to 1, we're having a Druid conclave to discuss peace, the state of the world. What can we do? I knew Terry Dobney very well. He was always keen to get a sort of interfaith conference going in Avebury, because from the Druid perspective, which is 10,000 years old in Europe here, these religious wars between theologies are very recent, and we always wanted to make them come to Avebury and apologise to the rest of the world for their theological simplicity. Either or, my prophet on my mountain versus yours. I mean, this is all very simplistic. And I know Terry and I were always planning this, so he will be with us in spirit. And anyone else that is in and around Wiltshire and Avebury, please come and attend 24th of September, 11 to 1. The other things to say, just to say that I'm carrying on monthly with my World Intellectual Wisdom Forum. We took off a break for August, but the 30th of September there'll be a meeting again. And here we have intellectuals from representing different traditions, religions, cultures, Indians, Americans, people from the Middle East, and it's always very interesting discussions. And if you haven't found them yet, you're welcome to come along. And then I'm also involved, continuing with the Wisdom Keepers Council, run by my friend Satyen Raja, who's a philosopher sage. He is a martial artist of a high degree. He trained in all that stuff. He regards peace as the most supreme martial art. What we're trying to do is use our energy, intellectually, spiritually, morally, and physically, to bring about peace. It is the summation of the martial arts, what we call the Irenic arts. And we have wisdom keepers on this council from different traditions, different lineages. So that's That's happens on the third Friday of each month. And there'll be one on the 18th of October, which I'll be attending. And then I've had a visit here from various people this last month, this last week, who've just gone back. I had Alexander de Beauharnais from America, who's part French descent from Josephine Beauharnais, the wife of Josephine. And when I went to see the movie about Napoleon, I thought it was beautifully done. I also thought Napoleon's great mistake was divorcing Josephine and going off with this Austrian princess. Because after that, he started losing his battles. I think Josephine brought him good luck. And they had a real love thing going on. So anyway, it's nice that her descendants turned up. And he's now on the team of the Delphic Academy, which I'm coordinating. And we're working on various ways to get the arts and culture working for peace, and to do the intellectual side of it. I'm going to leave it to others to organise the actual Delphic Games. I can't be bothered to deal with the politics of all that and the fundraising. I will help, but only from a distance. What I'm focusing on is the Delphic Academy, which is the think tank behind the Games. And I've been entrusted with this mission. And so right now, Alexander and his friend and partner in crime are down in Venice at a film type arts event in Venice. There's 2 or 3 of them going on, with an amazing Venetian who is very much keen to see the beauty of Italian art and artists and contemporary art applied to peace and ecological sanity. So we're working to prevent runaway climate change and to really wake up the conscience of the planet. Alexander's going to be in New York for the 21st of September for this International Peace Day, and we'll be ringing a bell, I hope, and joining in with our meditation from there. And at that point in New York, there's going to be the Summit for the Future, organised by the UN Secretary General. So heads of government representatives will be discussing what kind of future do we want as a planet. Well, we want a future without war and violence. We want a future that's more about the watercourse way, finding the middle way, finding the sea of peace, instead of prophets on a mountain cursing each other. And we want a future that is more friendly to women, that women and children don't get blown up if war happens. And that was what Adomnum was concerned with in his Lex Innocentium, because he was regarded as the liberator of women in the Celtic context, because they were often killed in war. Before his law, in the battles of Ireland, which were pretty fierce, women were slaughtered and children and so on. He said, no, that's wrong. And it was his mother that haunted him in a dream and made him write this law. He was and yet we still have to do it. Now that was 697, now we're 1400 years later and we still have to repeat this. Only now we've got extra wording about protecting the environment, which is also an innocent, protecting animals, and safeguarding the future for humanity. So this fits in with the Summit of the Future, and I believe that we will be presenting this project at the UN Summit of the Future. So that's very exciting, all that. And I just want to say a couple more things. Firstly, to remind people about the European Mediation Service. I mean, I'm kind of partly an academic, but partly a seer, because that's my Druid function, I saw in 2008, when I was travelling through the Balkans, that conflict would break out on the Russian-Ukrainian frontier. I saw it as clear as daylight. It was a time when the Russians were threatening to cut off Ukraine's gas unless they paid vast amounts of money. And I looked at the paper and I thought, oh my God, conflict's coming. And so I came home and I wrote this. I said, look, the European Union has to help neighbours that fall out with each other by having a mediation service. And I sent it to all the European Union heads of the time. Not only did they not respond and initiate this, the British lot, who I also sent it to, then went and withdrew from the European Union itself, like trashing the house or trying to. Who did that? Well, the extreme right, of course. This is a project from the moderate centre, the left centre. This is a common sense project, like the people that created the European Union, like Schuman and Monnet. And it's saying, like, it's in our interest as the greatest ever experiment in international peace that's ever happened, that we have a mediation service that intervenes when conflicts break out on our borders. It's in our interest, because if these nation states fall apart in civil wars, then we can't trade with them, we can't be peacefully touristing there, they can't come to us except in waves as refugees, which destabilise our countries. And so it's much cheaper and much more morally sensible to send teams of mediators who can offer, in a sense, bribes, like have 200 million euros to not fight each other, Russia and Ukraine. We'll help you grow your economies if you don't fight, please. So had that been done when I first thought this up, 2008, none of this tragedy we've seen would have happened. The trouble is, like Cassandra, my words of warning have not been taken seriously in high places. But I'm going to carry on. And I just had a visiting political science student from University of Rome reading this, determined to sort of, spread the word, because it's still a good idea. It should be done immediately. And any politician that can think beyond their next egotistical election results should do this for the benefit of all future generations, not just in Europe, but in the whole world. Because if Europe goes down in a smoking rubble of World War III, there's not much hope for the rest of the world. I also want to flag up again, just if you haven't read it, my Druidry is quite intense, my commitment to that. That's why I'm going to Avebury and things, and why I'm involved with the St. Columba Dominant Initiative. This is the only encyclopedia of Druid studies in the world. It's in 3 volumes. I want it to be translated into French. I'd love to have it launched in French edition in Paris. And we can, re-invoke the ancient Druid nature of the priests and priestesses of the Parisi tribe, who gave their name to Paris. This is Druid heartland where I'm speaking from, and that's where I wrote this 3-volume work. I just need a good French intellectual publisher to take it on. And they do exist. It's just a question of finding the right one. So if you know the right publisher, let me know. And finally, before we play our games, I want to share this work, if you are not familiar with it, Philosophiae Religionis Principia Mathematica. It's 3 out of 4 volumes. I haven't had time to finish the 4th volume. And I'm inventing a new field of mathematics, which, for the want of a better term, we can call religious mathematics. It's looking at the overlap between religious studies as an academic discipline, which is my forte, and mathematical sciences, which is enormous and fascinating and really complex. And it includes every branch of mathematics, from trigonometry to algebra to the mathematics behind quantum theory and all kinds of complicated things. And I've tried to look at the overlap between the 2 fields. And there are obvious things like how many religions are there, or how many gods are there, how many goddesses. But that leads to many, many complex questions, like what are numbers? What is the archetypal meaning behind the number 2, say, dualism? How does that reflect in different religions? Well, dualism, good and evil. What about the number 3, which is a triangle in Pythagoras' symbology? Pythagoras said numbers are the arche. They're the source. Everything comes from number. And I've explained all that in this work. And then there are chapters on, say, Islam and mathematics. Islam contributed vastly to maths. On Hinduism and maths, which contributed, the number 0 and decimal placing and lots of other things. Plus they had huge numbers of different words for infinity. They invented and loved vastly huge numbers, the Hindus. And it's been proved right that, the universe needs those big numbers. And then all the other religions. I talked about the Christian idea of the Trinity. I mean, that's a mathematical idea. God, it can be divided into 3 persons. Well, that's a mathematical proposition. But then why 3? No, why not 4? Why not 5? Why not 8? Why not 33 million, which is what the Hindus say is the number of the gods? But why stop there? Why 33 million? So I've only begun asking these questions, and I think it's true to say I'm the first intellectual on the planet in recent times. I mean, if Newton were alive, he would have written this book because he said at the end of his work, Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, after which this is named, he said, I've explained gravity, how it works mathematically, but I haven't explained what caused it, what originates gravity. And he said in the last chapter of his book, he said, I think it's got something to do with God, but I'm not going to talk about that now. And of course, so I'm saying 400 years later, it's time we started talking about it. And I'm trying to finish or contribute to that conversation. And I read a very interesting article in The Guardian this week about a French mathematician who lived in the Ariège down in the Pyrenees, and he had devoted decades of his life to advanced mathematics. I've got his name written down, but if you just Google French...
Grothendieck?
I think so, yes. Yes. He was an older man who just died, but he devoted his life to, in the end, towards sort of theology and maths. He was trying to redefine what we mean by space, and he's left hundreds of thousands of words of writing on paper, which are going to the Bibliothèque Nationale. And advanced scientists are just trying to make sense of it. What does this mean? I'm just saying if he were alive, he would have loved this work. We could have chatted, but he became a hermit, and he nobody understood him in the mathematical profession, and nobody, therefore could really converse with him. I've tried in my book to not do that. I've tried to keep the terminology to a manageable degree. So this would be understandable by a sixth form student doing either maths or religious studies, or adults, or a bright, genius type GCSE students would have fun with it too. And I devised the concept as a teacher, so it's a teaching tool. But so, yes, there are people, and in the next edition I'm going to add something about him, because I didn't know he existed when I wrote it about 2 or 3 years ago. So, and I've been attending events with the Scientific and Medical Network, meeting young students who are doing PhDs in mathematics and consciousness and spirituality and brain science, and trying to interlink like religious theological ideas with mathematics. So there's a whole new bunch of people following on who are going to carry on with this work, and it's exciting. What I want to know is what is the equation for peace between all religions, and between what's the mathematical formula that we can apply to religious conflicts like Gaza, like whatever. It must exist, and maybe we need AI to find it. So we program in all the problems, all the pain, all the hurt, all the prophets on the mountain shouting at each other for thousands of years, and somehow we've got to get them off the mountain, getting down the valley to the Tao. That's maybe maths can help that. That's why I wrote the book. Okay, that's me done. I'm going to stop there. Any questions or comments before we move on?
Yes. I go to your last sentences about the way to see that AI could help us to solve the problem of peace, putting all in the box, mixing it. But I have a kind of intuition that life, past is past. So if you use the past to see the present or the future, it hurts me in a way, because something is unfolding, and for me life will be new.
So the solution is going to be something unexpected that pops out of the...
Of course,
the mind
AI could help, but I much rely on intuition, on dreams, on because we have access to the ocean. You have to take the metaphor of the water.
Sure.
Each of us. So I'm more trustful on this.
Right.
I don't know what you think, but...
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, yes, I agree. And that's where seership and prophetic consciousness, prophetic intelligence comes in, because the prophet, be it Muhammad, Moses, Jesus, whoever, is the one that can access that ocean, but publicly on behalf of everyone. And We can all do it privately, or not all of us, but we can be trained to do it. But few of us have the courage to then stand up on a mountain and say, no, stop, thou shalt not. Because A, you get shot, B, you get assassinated, C, you get ignored, D, you get laughed at. Like, that's the Gandhi figure, or the Martin Luther King, they all get assassinated. So what do we do? Where does prophetic intelligence go? I think when you reach a level of prophetic intelligence, which is a sort of ovate type of druid, we have ovates that can be seers, and they reach a place beyond conventional time, so they can look into the past and the future, and they can see the present as an infinite field, because both past and present and future are all interconnected, and you can decide where to place your attention, be it past, present or future. I think it's the present that is the infinite field from which both the past and the future arrive. If we really focus on the present, then you can see the outcome of all possible combinations of the combinatorics of all possible dharmas, to use Buddhist terminology. Everything is a dharma, every little electron that's zipping around. They've all got their own stories, narratives, histories. Every photon that's come from the sun. And they're all landing here on planet Earth thinking, my God, this place is a mess. You know, what can we do? Maybe. So, yes, it's very interesting. And also, just to say that in the Delphic movement, we're trying to re-found the Delphic Oracle, because that was where the trained priestesses of Apollo would go and be available to give advice to kings, emperors, presidents, MPs, warriors who would consult them. And we're going to refound the Delphic Oracle to try and get prophetic intelligence back on the planet. And I'm working with a bunch of people through the Delphic Academy to do that. And I think it's time we reopened the portals between the mundane human world and the divine world. And this is what I call accessing divine intelligence. And as you say, it's a human right. It's getting to that river, or following the river, tracing it to the sea, and then making that available to people. Because it seems to me people are starving and dying for want of prophetic intelligence. And they're only locked in these wars because they're fighting over, like Borges said, bald men fighting over a comb. My prophet's better than yours. Well, hang on, why don't you find the universal prophethood within yourself, that accessing of divine intelligence? And there's enough, we live in an infinitely fecund universe, surrounded by vast, probably stellar civilizations that we can't even dream of their intelligence levels, that are desperately trying to say to mankind, as channeling types say, wake up, get with the cosmic program. As Voltaire said 200 years ago, there's divine intelligences out there. We need to up our game here. The first thing we need to do is stop killing each other, because it's such a waste. It's such a waste of potential. And we certainly need to stop endangering the planet's environment. And we certainly need to stop, killing each other. So I think, I don't know if that answers your question. Those are some of the places we might look for an answer. Does that help?
Yes.
Good. Okay, well, let's move on now. Let's look at the... could you pass us a couple of the grids of the periodic table? And then we can choose one each. I've already chosen mine.
Me too.
Yes. Nice to have a grid to look at these world problems through. Which one have you chosen today?
Maybe we already discussed it. I don't know if you agree to discuss again about Rosie